Welcome to Lead Talk. Today, our leader is someone who is very special. The way her leadership shape her and take her successful journey. Today, she's not someone only with title and position, but rather the impact that she have done across her career and journey. Leadership is never about the position that you are handling. It's about the success and the impact and the legacy you leave behind. With over than 20 years experience, with a position that she's managing a lot of responsibility and making decision across business development, across investment in the Middle East and Africa. As a president of HVS Middle East and Africa, she was across different sectors, which is coming to the strategy and the value creation. Today, we are not talking about the success she has achieved, but rather it's different topic, which is the leadership. How did she become the person that she is here today and the impact that she's doing with the team? Welcome, Hala Matar Choufany. Welcome to Lead Talk, Hala.
Thank you, Hala.
It's our pleasure having you us today.
And likewise. Thank you so much. I'm really humbled by your introduction.
I'm very excited for our session today. I know most of the interviews you've been, it's about the hospitality, about the business. Today, really want to disconnect from everything about, the business itself and talk about you as a Hala, as the leadership. Today, each one of us, we look at the environment that shape us. I'm sure there is a lot of people that have impact on us. Situation happen. We have principle, ethics. I want to hear from Hala, what is the environment that shaped this leader today?
Well, it's millions of moments, I can tell you for sure. And rightly, as you said, we are who we are on the back of many achievements, many failures, many experiences, pleasant, unpleasant. It's actually what really defines us. If you want me to talk about my early beginnings, I was raised and born in Beirut. Quite an interesting time because I think this very much also speaks to some of my ambitions, but also some of my vulnerabilities and responsibilities. So I was born at a time when actually there was war into a family that was very protective, influenced very much by pushing us to really teach ourselves, remain resilient, and to acknowledge the fact that despite all the difficulties, there's a better tomorrow. And I think this has very much stayed with me, even during times where it's not always very pleasant, that tomorrow is a better day. And it has really shaped a lot of the decisions I have made and how I assess and look at opportunities in the now, in the future, the short term and the long term. One of the fundamentals very much in my upbringing was to invest in ourselves. We're only four girls at home, and I keep bringing
four
this
girls.
up because
Only four girls.
only four girls.
Only four girls.
Only
Okay.
four girls.
Yeah.
So
You are the elder.
no, I'm not the eldest.
Oh, okay. Okay.
My Rana is the eldest, and there are the two younger ones. Again, in our definition, there is the pre and post-war generation. So I'm a pre-war at that time. So born into a family that my dad very much believed in equality, to be very honest, and this has been demonstrated in his commitment to our learning. And therefore, for me, if there's one thing my dad was able to pass on and that I'm committed to pass on as well, whether to my own children or to people around me, is that continuous education and self-development. And that has pretty much shaped the way, the way I ran for student cabinet at school or at university. Is just taking that responsibility and really trying to do things differently.
Yeah, definitely. I can relate, the self-development. Always I see the success leader, always self-development, something very critical they look at. Understanding that we don't always know everything and that we need to keep pushing for ourselves.
And on this one as well, if I can just open a bracket on self-development, because oftentimes it feels like someone is going to teach you. Now, my theory, even during school days and later on in university, you are given the opportunities to learn, but you are in charge of your own learning.
True.
Yeah.
So, you oftentimes attend the best courses in the world. If you don't apply yourself in the same fashion as someone that really wants to self-develop their own self, then probably your outcome of that experience is very different to someone who, I keep saying, you're hungry. You're hungry to learn because there's just so much that can be taught.
And it should be self-passion when people look at it, doesn't
Absolutely.
wait, for someone. And
Absolutely,
this is
yeah.
what, differentiate the people
Yeah.
when they are success. Hala, if I would look at what are certain value that really was, had an impact on you when you say, today that you are the family that you have been raised, and definitely you are talking about the uncertainty that you were living in. And I think this is something now different, different stages in your life when you are navigating through uncertainty. It's something that you are familiar with now.
Yeah.
So how do you take this, into leadership and looking, you are leading a team when, for example, we are going now through, uncertain time in the UAE. So how does this, relate to your leadership?
I think you asked a couple of questions, so I'll try just to break
Sure.
them down, because one of them is what are those values that I carried forward, which very much actually leads into my leadership, right? Now, whether during certain or uncertain times, but we'll talk about the uncertainty because it also requires slightly different approach.
Yeah.
But the values that I definitely think I've been very well taught at home and then through experience, and I can relate to and I'm comfortable with, I would say radical transparency. To me, that's not even just being honest, like being very radical about how you approach that. To me, fairness is an extremely important one, and the ability to express yourself. Now, that could be the equivalent of freedom. I think responsible freedom is what I'm trying to say, right? So those three, even when I was extremely young, that's what I demonstrated. At times, because of radical transparency or radical honesty, you're not so popular because you may not necessarily agree to everything, you're questioning. But that also taught me that within my current role and leadership, it's even more needed to be radical with the truth, especially as an advisor.
Definitely.
I mean, it applies to everyone, but as an advisor, because you're responsible to actually not bend the facts, therefore you need to be transparent. And that goes to the client you're supporting, but even what you're showcasing to the team, the importance of actually being very transparent in your doings. So whether it's the work we're doing or my relationship with them.
Can I interrupt you here for a minute?
Sure.
I just kind of want to break this a bit. You talked about radical, being truthful in a radical way. You actually talked about quite a few things. And I'm assuming this obviously came out of the environment that you said your parents had kind of forced for you. And you mentioned your dad quite a bit, so I'm assuming that your dad had very huge influence on you and on your career. How did you manage, even as a child and growing up, when you seem to kind of take a direction that wasn't a very popular direction, right? When you said radical truth, right? I'm also quite interested because I actually believe in that, and that's kind of something that I want to instill in my very, very, very young daughter and the daughter to come. I'm actually quite interested to hear how you manage that, so that maybe I can teach that to my daughters.
Yeah, so oftentimes I look back and I say, really, how did that kind of engrave itself? And
Yeah.
it comes out almost in, I wouldn't say daily, but there are many instances in life where you're actually standing in a moment of truth. Do you hold it? Do you uphold those values or ethics? But perhaps now, when you ask me the question, I'm just reflecting on a sentence that pretty much everywhere at home, in every textbook or class book that I had, my mom used to write and my dad would enforce, is always say the truth and do to others what you would like others to do for you.
Okay.
And maybe back in the days, and I remember I used to write it up on my skirt, and it now seems to me like I've just carried it over in pretty much everything I do. Now, to your question about making that difficult choice, because when you're also radically saying the truth, there's a cost to that, right? There's fear that is associated. What if I'm not popular? What if? And at a very young age, I agree, it's much harder because you can't see the effect of that and how far that will go in building credibility.
Yeah.
But today I'm sitting here, I can say confidently that on all those occasions where I actually stepped back or said no, or actually decided not to bend the truth and potentially lose certain friendships or even clients, that it has only built better my credibility.
Right.
So it does pay off. It is about reinforcing that message. Now, the challenge is in today's world, and I must say that the challenge for bringing up kids in today's world is how do you enforce those messages of being truthful, being kind, in a world that is not necessarily always very kind.
Yeah.
So as parents, it's much harder, right? But I think it's a value system that you kind of lead. And you know what? Also, experience told me that you lead by action,
Right.
right? Even as a parent, you lead
You
by
teach
action.
them to look
So
at
you
you
saw
what
your
you are doing.
parents kind of also instill that, yeah, I mean, act on those values, and they supported
100%.
you.
100%.
Right.
And perhaps the culture of no judgment was very encouraging at home.
Yeah.
I must add.
Okay.
The culture of no
Environment.
judgment, where basically I was able to turn around and say things as they are.
Okay.
I mean, they didn't necessarily always appreciate it, so we would have a conversation. I mean, there were many warnings that my dad flagged to me. He was a lawyer, so he flagged certain warnings. He said, you know, you don't really have to experiment
Okay.
to find out for yourself, but at least I was in a safe playground and I wasn't being judged at home. And I think this really you carry forward as an individual. That's why, I mean, again, we don't want to talk too much psychology,
Right.
but it really,
It's important.
it grows with you, right? I've been accepted despite actually saying no. I've been supported despite at times I went against the tide.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's okay. I mean, there are parameters in how you actually
I mean,
communicate, but you should be able to be to be yourself and speak your mind.
I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, in the workplace, a lot of people will tell you agree with the management, be useful to the management, play to the tune, if you will. As a character that I see out of you and what you just said, that doesn't exactly fit that description, right? So, how did you kind of, you know, when you started your career and started moving up, you know, how did you find yourself in a leadership position? Was it you were in a job and they said, you know what, you're doing such a great job, we want to put you now as a leader, or was it something that you kind of, you know, pushed yourself through? We'd like to hear with you, and I'm very interested, you know, taking that values that you had and always being very truthful, which doesn't conform to, let's say, the mainstream way of thinking. How did you kind of evolve from your, you know, early career towards leadership?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it took determination from my end, seeing the end goal and really wanting to grow through with the company, but it also, I must acknowledge the opportunities that were out there that I actually stood up for and said I can do it. So I've been with the firm HVS now for 22, coming into 23 years. And clearly that is quite telling in terms of the strong fit between the corporate culture and my own culture. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been here. I would have left. And to your point around, generally speaking, it's recommended that you align and accept and just move on. It's not something I would recommend. I understand why people choose to do so, but here I'm underlining the word choose.
Yeah.
Because in my view, we get to choose whether
Which style you want to live in.
which exactly. And it's a complex one, but people do have the choices, and oftentimes you find yourself stuck in an environment that is not the right environment. And this is where leadership, tying back to the question of leadership, if you're not in the right environment and you can remain true to yourself, because leadership is not complex. I mean, we haven't spoken yet around the topic of leadership. If you're true to yourself and if you find the right fit, then you can lead, but you need to lead with your actions. So for me, I chose to stay here. I chose to stay here because the corporate values align with mine, because I am respected to make such calls. So I have that position. I'm trusted. I don't have a board that is doubting that this is the right path, because it really aligns, and because there is clear career progression. When I shifted between operations into consulting, I did a choice that I didn't want to stay in operations. So pre-HVS, I was working in the hospitality industry and operations. I also chose that this is not perhaps the career that would allow me to grow to the levels or the aspirations that I had. And therefore, I shifted my career. But to me, these are fundamentals that I'm not willing to compromise, because with leadership, you experiment. And just talking a little bit about my journey with leadership, again, with 20 something years in the same company, perhaps I didn't get the benefit of others in the sense that they had different mentors, different leaders, bosses where you actually learn. So somehow I've self-taught myself, and I've experimented with different leadership styles.
To start
out
with
of the
your
textbook,
childhood, what you
right?
were saying.
And out of the textbook, there are different leadership
Experience,
styles.
yeah.
You know what? I realize at the end of the day, leaders, they need to align with their true self,
True.
right? And when you do align with your true self, it's much easier to lead than trying to be someone else.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I was just about to ask you, Hala, about your leadership style, and I just want to also go a little bit back here. When you were saying you have been raised in a culture that you should take say the truth, you should be comfortable, no judgment. Today, taking this culture to the corporate life, okay, as a leader today, you will have different type of people, different cultures, and as Saif was saying now, that you might find someone you want to please the manager, the other person he's very is sticking to the truth. How do you ensure you create this environment to be able to pass the message that you believe in, because it's clearly for you it's all about the truth, especially you are a consultancy, a field. So how do you ensure that align all the team that you have on this to be on the same page? Is it zero tolerance, for not being all on the same page, or how do you do it? If you can tell us a little bit.
It's not very complicated, Hala. If the hiring of the people on your team follows pretty much very strict values,
Culture. Yeah.
right? So in my experience, I would say rarely has there been an occasion of violation of the HVS or my personal values, because there's a clear understanding around that. I think it's important that ultimately, and that's why I emphasize the hiring. When you're hiring, you really have to hire those that believe in a similar value system. And actually, when I interview or when I have spoken in the past with some of my partners, I said, I'm not discouraging you from joining us. We're a great firm, and I'd like to think you would enjoy working with me. But there are non-negotiables in the way we do business. We say no when we should say no. We will never bend it. And time again, I realized that when they joined, and perhaps initially they were unsure about making certain decisions, that a year into it, they would say, actually, now we understand why we're better respected, or why you're better respected out there, because then you are relied upon. So again, I'm not suggesting that this is going to work for everyone, but in my practice and the way I'm leading, I find myself very comfortable in actually being able to remain true to all stakeholders. I don't want it to sound like only to clients or to colleagues, even to the team, right? So they appreciate it, but it's a culture that it's hard work. It has to be
take a lot of time to be created.
I think you really need to hardwire it into the entire process, into the entire system, in how you coach, in how you set out clear expectations, at times in how you defend your teams. On any typical assignment, we have at times clients that they're not necessarily happy with the findings, and they're actually being quite difficult with the team. As a leader, what do you do?
What do you do?
How do you step
You protect your team.
Yeah.
You protect your team. I'm very...
Because you are fully confident,
protective.
because you are fully confident of them.
Yeah, and because,
even if you know that, let's say, someone didn't do the job 100%, you still protect.
Yeah, you take it offline. That's my view. You take it offline, because at the end of the day, this is your team. This is your success. Because Hala, genuinely, my view is that we are as successful, and I know this is often said and may sound cliche, but we are as successful as our teams. as individuals and leaders. I've had times where I had a weaker team and I felt slightly my hands were tight. And then when I had a very strong team and I knew that I could actually be
Definitely.
out there.
It's a reflection.
It's
it's a reflection
100%,
between the you
100%.
cannot the leader be successful
Yeah.
and the team is weak, and definitely
Yeah.
it's something connected on that.
But I mean, you mentioned something where you know sometimes the team isn't very strong. Do you intervene yourself? Do you feel like you have to go to a level, a more micro level to manage such situations, or do you kind of delegate and there are certain things that you'd rather leave to the team and certain things that you want to manage on your own?
So it's a bit of both. I mean, clearly on a typical day, you're not able to be very involved in the day to day. But I would say, generally speaking, I am quite pulled into the micro. And I
Okay.
don't mind because I think there's a lot of learning that happens when actually they get the opportunity to work with me. And there is also a learning for me to really understand whether it's also internally it's time to do things differently, because we're hiring new, in a totally new generation.
Yeah. I mean, especially from one generation to the other. We had an episode with Generation Z. And I'll be the first to admit that I was so wrong about them.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my misconceptions, and we kind of, I guess, frame it and move forward. But when you start working with them and you start dealing with the different generations, I mean, there's more learning from them because you also get that different perspective. I don't know if you agree with me or not.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. This is why we love welcoming new joiners, fresh joiners, and they're encouraged. I mean, most of the changes we did in the last 8 to 10 years has been led, initiated by the new
They have
joiners,
an amazing
because they have a
ideas,
different
perspective,
approach. They
yeah.
are the consumers of tomorrow and the decision makers of tomorrow. And we have really been able to pass on many changes that without clearly impacting the quality of what we do as financial advisors, but whether it is the look and feel, whether it's the way we promote ourselves. I mean, one of the advice we got is that we don't do enough justice to the type of work we do. Visually, we don't market it, we don't speak about it. And I understand they want to be proud of something. They're the generation of Insta. They want to post. They want to be able to talk about it. And it's okay within certain parameters. I mean, it's fine. I actually, I mean, on a personal level, they make me feel young. It's just amazing. I mean, it's amazing.
I mean, we're all young, especially
right.
mine with my white beard. I mean,
Yeah. We are.
It's a new look.
It's a new look, absolutely. Absolutely.
But Hala, today you are managing, let's say, there is a gap with the generation difference now in corporate. And at some time, it's look weird for us. And they have totally different way of working. In our episode, when we were, we were discussing with them, asking them question, for example, would you prefer to use Canva or PowerPoint? They were telling us amazing ideas. Some of them we are not even aware, as Saif said now. But how would you be, managing these two gaps? If you have especially two different generation, and keep welcoming them, let's say, to the work environment, because what they have in their mind is totally different from what we have currently.
Especially when you're sitting, I suppose, in a financial advisory practice, which doesn't really allow you room to be creative.
Yeah.
It's harder. I think with us, it's a function of remaining firm in the way we do work, while at the same time hearing them out and bringing certain processes and enhancements in place for them to become more efficient and to feel like this is more relevant. Like we've just embarked as a company, but even internally as an office, on our own ChatGPT. And this, I know, will be welcomed and appreciated by our consultants. They don't have to write their own 100-page report. They could be assisted by AI, right? So that's a plus for them. But it is our own HVS. So we're not also sacrificing or compromising the data
quality
of our
that
clients, right? So there are certain things that can be done. I think in our sector, a little bit not as as fluid as if we were in operations where, you know, you could go crazy with the ideas, you could really be able to endorse.
But you still are introducing some flexibility to adapt, the way, the new generation
Absolutely.
will be working. Yeah.
And that's
Which is
very important. I mean,
because
that's
this is how you'll attract them,
And it's not just this generation. I think with leadership, we talk about empathy. We talk about really being, sensitive to different abilities, capabilities, and also cultural differences. As a leader, I mean, you oftentimes meet people from all courses of life and with different experiences and background. We just talked about, for example, my upbringing. There are so many different issues out there. It's just taking the time to make sure. This is why I said earlier on, I think with firmness, what you need to do is be fair. Being fair to me is really trying to understand Hala and what Hala's needs are and what she can add to the value versus safe. And they're very different. I mean, I've also argued in the past, for example, that since we have acknowledged that men and women are different, why are we hiring them in the same way? Why do we give them feedback in the same way? I'm sure, Hala, you would appreciate like a 10-word compliment versus safe is probably good job.
One word only.
Good job. Because if I said more than good job, to him it's like, oh, that sounds weird. But if I did say only good job to you, Hala, you're probably thinking,
yes.
that was quite rushed.
I need a little bit empathy,
Yeah, exactly. And
emotional
that's okay because
trigger,
this is what leaders should do. This is how they should
you tailor yourself based on the people
you're still
that
saying
you're
the same
them.
thing. You're both as great, but I'm speaking his language and vice versa. So it's interesting. I mean, how do you really balance it out, and how do you come across while remaining consistent at all times? Because leadership is consistency as well.
Definitely, and it's always to have the balance, as you said, to not to compromise on the quality of the work, but at the same time to keep attracting, because they are, coming into the workplace now or later, So it's very
and they've
important.
become very selective. And I would argue that gone are the days where it's the employer who's choosing. Employees are now choosing us as
100%,
employers and as
100%,
leaders.
yeah.
So back to your point earlier on, if I don't necessarily represent or align with their value system, they probably don't want to work with me.
Working in HR, many times I came across people when we are discussing joining organization. Now people start to be aware more about what you were saying about the values, but also the purpose. What is the purpose of this company? Does it meet my or not? And you feel the passion. Passion now is something very important, especially in new generation. For them, if I'm not passionate about it, I don't want to work, I don't want to study it, and we are facing this with our kids as well. But I think this is something that I hear a lot, that what is the company purpose, where they are heading, and then they match it, as you said, and they're becoming very selective. Before, I remember, in our generation that, yes, I get this job, I get excited, but now it's totally different.
Definitely.
And this is where companies and leadership, they need to adjust, and keep...
But it's healthier, because it kind of like, you end up with a pool that really you can work with. So a lot of the challenges that we were facing in the old days, we may not necessarily be facing.
Sure.
It's a happier environment, and people will
healthier,
feel,
yes.
healthier environment.
Definitely.
During COVID, there was a lot of uncertainty across all industries. But there were a few very large companies that were hiring. So without mentioning names, I get called by one company, the HR, and they're like, we've seen your profile, we're very interested, and we'd like you to come in for a conversation. And on the phone, right? I said, look, I mean, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I know your company. It's not for me. I mean, what you guys do and what I believe in are very different. Thank you very much. And they appreciated it. And they said, thank you. And then I said, what's the package? I had to go back to the... Yeah, I made a mistake there. I should have gone to that conversation.
No regret now, Saif.
No regret. No, I mean, from a value system, as you said, right? I think, it's something that I personally believe in. Right? You're either comfortable with what you do or you're not comfortable with what
and
you
believe
do.
in it. This is as well.
And if you're not, and if you're able to do something when you're not comfortable with it, as far as I'm concerned, there's a big question around the character, and usually to me, that's someone that is actually more of a problem than a solution. That's my 2 cents on it. I don't know if you guys agree with it. But Hala, we had a conversation, and then we talked about it a little bit earlier, and it's something that I want to get into a bit more. Responsible investments, right? So I mean, I think it's a good point to bring it up, based on the value system that you have, what you're trying to instill in your teams. But now, if we take it towards your customer, you're kind of also taking that towards the customers that you're advising. Could you explain to us a bit, what do you mean by responsible investments? How do you handle the objections at times when it's not what the customers really want to hear? But also, how do you also coach that team to take that message, because you can't be everywhere at the same time, but you want to ensure that you have that philosophy across all your engagements through your teams? It's a long question,
Yeah.
but
No, I mean, it's a big responsibility.
yeah.
Again, what we do is a big responsibility. This is kind of what I keep repeating to the team. We're advising on millions, billions in terms of worth of projects. So we need to be able to pass on the right advice, both financially, but more importantly, how, what we talk about responsible investments. So responsible investments, clearly the underlying fundamentals should be a very well researched financial simulation. And that's when we look at the financial side of the model and whether the returns could be realized, whether this investment is correct. To me, it is even taken to the next level and trying to understand what is the impact of such an investment on its neighborhood, on its community in that specific location. I mean, I cover the MEA region, so quite a wide, 2 continents.
Yeah.
In certain parts, clearly, these developments are, they're definitely enhancing the well-being of the city. In other markets, they're definitely destroying the city or the market or the place. And this is where responsible investment comes in the sense of trying to understand how do you roll out such a development while minimizing the damage, whether the damage is to the community, to the natural resources. That's what responsible investment. Now, on the pushback, I mean, our role is to highlight it to clients. And again, going back to the theory that at the end of the day, we are asked to advise. A client can make the choice to listen to us or not. It would be a shame, in my opinion, if they don't, because we're not conflicted. We're not investing our money. So any advice that we put forward is actually in the best interest of the project. We work quite regularly also with government entities. So there is an opportunity really to bring in more responsible investments, because then they can measure the impact in a positive way. Oftentimes these investments are also creating jobs and just improving the well-being and the quality of life in, say, secondary markets. But the pushback on, when it comes to these conversations around exploiting certain resources that shouldn't be done is similar to when we are being asked to actually improve the numbers without significant justifications. It is a matter, again, as I said, it's not easy. It's basically standing your grounds that this is what we believe collectively as a team. So when the team needs to bring me in, they bring me in. We believe so, and this is our advice, and then highlighting the risks that are associated. Which again, I mean, ultimately you find that this whole circle of employees choosing you and you choosing your value system and then you choosing your clients
And
as well.
backing them up as well.
It comes back in circles, right? Because ultimately you will have less clients that don't necessarily appreciate good advice or honest advice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the entire connected framework, if you look at it, makes a lot of sense.
I want to ask Hala another question now. It's about leadership successor. Every success leader, they always say, must have a successor for them. Some people, they view it as a replacement. Some people feel, no, it's a mandatory. I need to ensure that I have someone who is successful. So if I leave at any time, the business is still established with the same quality, because at the end, the leader will leave a legacy, at any point. What's your personal view, Hala, on, having a successor or leadership successor in general?
Well, it's extremely important for the business. There is no doubt. And, for us, we take it quite seriously. And I've actually only a few days back, I was talking about that do we have the right individuals in place, because I cover different verticals and different regions. So it's not enough to identify one successor. and it's a work in progress, right? But more importantly, I think, other than for the business, so I'll keep the business on the side and I'll take the view of what
Personal.
does it give me. There were many that I really worked hard with to groom them into becoming the successor. They decided to leave for different reasons. I respect their decision, but it was sufficient for me to have seen the change. I think the impact from actually allowing people to grow and thrive in the organization, to me, is great.
But what
If we
was
could
your
keep
feeling
them-
when you are working on someone and you see that, you know, they are leaving after that? Do you look at it as something positive because they are stepping into, you know,
higher
into their
positions?
career?
Yeah,
Higher
I really
position?
enjoy
because
them.
it can
I
be
really
both,
enjoy where
right?
they
Or
are.
you feel sad
Yeah.
that no, they are leaving us, even though
yeah. So we do have a
potential.
very large alumni base in Dubai. So whenever
Okay.
we're at conferences and events, I mean, the amount of HVSers that are out there, and it's amazing. And genuinely, I feel very proud. Genuinely. Now, that is not to say that in a moment I don't. Initially, I used to take it personal. It's like, oh, they're leaving me. Then I realized they never leave me. They leave a role, their circumstances change. So it's definitely not personal. That's one, one point that I want to make. It's not personal. Listen, if they cannot identify the right opportunity for them, they're better off somewhere else. And I think we owe it to them. It does mean that, yeah, maybe it's a wasted time and investment, but I genuinely don't see it this way. I'll do it over and over again, because at the end of the day, my commitment is to those individuals.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to say, Hala, to relate it, that sometimes if you look at these people business-wise, yes, you might think that you are losing them, but actually you are, you know, contributing to their success, you know,
100%.
somewhere. Especially in corporate, it's not always easy to, you know, and you want to climb the ladder, but sometimes opportunities are not there.
100%.
And I feel, you know, from my experience that I look at the leader who let go, you know, the potential people, if there is no opportunity for them, that they are doing something good for them. It's better than to keep them, retain them, and they are not growing, because they will end up, you know, affect on the business and, you know, how they see themselves.
Yeah,
And I feel, what do you think these people would say about Hala, you know, after they are leaving, getting, you know, other opportunity?
I know what they say, and really, honestly, I mean, you can tell from the smile. I love that I've left them, or they feel the way they feel today, that they have actually grown so much and that they were given this opportunity. So that's why I am pleased to see how they have
make
grown.
you proud.
Very proud.
Yeah.
I mean, oftentimes when they would walk into the office to actually share with me the decision of leaving, my immediate reaction is, okay, this is not the HVS hat. I'm going to put it on the side. Tell me about it. That's the very first thing I say. Tell me about it. Let me tell you if you're going to a better place or if you're not. And then the HVS hat, that, you know, in an ideal world, and I understand. I mean, actually, one of our employees, I'll just share with you this, because she had left to an opportunity where I really think there is nothing to add to what she has learned at HVS. It's a company that is 100 times the size of HVS in terms of number of employees. Massive. But the role she actually moved to, and I understand maybe because that meant she can do more work in her hometown. But I remember her boss called me up and she said, we're friends. I mean, in the industry, we all know each other. So she called me up and she said, listen, I'm sorry. I'll buy you a drink for actually hiring her off your team.
Okay.
And I said, no, that's fine. You don't need to buy me a drink. But I just want to tell you something. I feel that she's not going to learn from you. And that's not fair. All you're going to be doing is you're going to be using all the knowledge that she has built over the years. And the reality, this is so true, that wasn't such a learning journey for her. So, you know, at the end of the day, I try to distance. Yes, I mean, ultimately, as a leader, there's the business interest that you need to protect. But to me, everyone that is on the team becomes part of this family. And, you know, making sure that they're leaving to something better makes me happier.
Definitely,
When they
yeah.
actually end up going somewhere that I don't necessarily think is a step forward to them, it actually upsets me
But
for
it's a
them.
learning process, even
Yeah.
for them. Right?
100%.
Would you welcome them back?
I was actually going to add, we welcome two back
Okay.
over the last 10 years, where they've gone and then they have
It's
come
nice
back.
to rehire it. I like that. You know, some companies they will go against that, but for me, always I say because you will regain, you know, the
Yeah.
talents with the passion and the commitment and integrity will, you know, will be
Yeah.
coming back to you.
And I think, Hala, you also have to acknowledge what age group, what level. I mean, the younger ones, we sometimes expect them to figure it all out.
Yeah. They're
When
learning.
they're young, when
They're
they're in their
learning, yeah.
mid-20s, you know, something else, the green is grasser on the other side until they actually go and realize it's not.
And
And they
experience
humbly
it.
come back. And, you know, if they have the right skills and they only left because they were motivated by either the compensation or the title,
Or the environment
right?
or
If it's
something.
the right
yeah.
fit and you have the vacancy, why would you not? I mean, you've already invested in training them. That's how I look at it. I mean, it's the whole question about egos, and I mean, unless they've burnt a bridge. And
Right,
if they've
that's-
burnt a
that's
bridge, then
something
it's
else,
different.
Different,
But if not, why not? I mean, it's a win for everyone.
Hala, when we talk about successor, today you look at potential, performance, or value. How would you weight, you know, when you are identifying a successor for you?
Well, definitely a combination, but no compromise on values, I would think, because a lot of what we do are really guided by the values, and it's a combination. We've had people go that were top performance but didn't necessarily share the same
Match.
values. So I personally, I would always recommend that you hire for attitude, and then potentially you could train for some of the skills that may be required for the job.
Definitely, but
And
the
a
value and
successor, yeah.
integrity, I think these
Value,
are
yeah.
very critical. You
100%.
cannot train someone if they
100%,
don't
yeah.
have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hala, we wanted to kind of. We said we're not going to talk about your work in the industry per se, but I think we can't help but kind of touch on it with the current situation, the geopolitical situation. Not necessarily talking about the industry and the effects on the industry itself, but these are obviously very challenging times. And we'd kind of like to understand your philosophy about how do you manage challenges and difficult situations.
Safe, these are definitely challenging time, and I think we've experienced that also not many years ago during COVID. Initially, there is the responsibility as advisors. We're typically looked upon or for advice and for direction. And therefore, that responsibility of really acknowledging to what extent the situation is critical. But more importantly, before the outside world, I think essentially internally, there should be an acknowledgement along with the team and a proper communication of what does it mean, what we're going through. I mean, I honestly, just like everyone else, on a daily basis, I'm updating myself and updating others around me. So we don't necessarily need to nail it to be able to communicate, but as long as acknowledging that what is happening could be short-lived, but could be long-lived. If it's long-lived, how are we gonna position ourselves to actually continue to provide reliable sources and information to our client? Internally, what is it that we need to do to remain relevant and to rescope? So these are not the times that as leaders we wish for, but it is extremely important that you build that confidence once again with the team, that you're able to communicate, you're able to also be true. That, you know, I've got teams that are now sitting everywhere else outside of Dubai that actually is understanding that we all share similar fears, even though I'm the leader and I'm there to guide them and pull them through, but that I also have my own insecurities or anxieties. It's not typical times, and you know, we as a team and personally, I've started looking at what the future could look like in the next 6 to 9 months, because we ultimately will have to report on what our outlook for this market is and how it's likely to impact the industry. But I think essentially what was important is to bring a sense of calmness to the team, that we're in it together and we're going to be communicating regularly, and that we will hopefully come out of it again together as strong as we could.
I think the communication in this time from the leader, it's very important. Yani, I talk with a lot of, you know, friends, colleagues, you know, you feel, as you said, the anxiety that people has, and they were, you know, some people were telling me, we need a bit of reassurance. What's happening, you know, even the leader, you might not have all the answers, but being present, being with the people, talking to them, I think this is something very important.
Yeah.
And it's needed, because you cannot just leave everything, you know, that, okay, we are navigating through the uncertain time, but the presence is very important, I believe, communication.
So see, again, when we talk about leadership, because I tend to say, I mean, as a leader or leadership is not just about being everywhere. It's
Definitely.
about being present, and the word present
in
is
the right
very
time to
important
be with the
in the right
people.
time.
Yeah.
And again, my view is that it's okay if your team are looking for you to guide them, but that they can also feel that you may be slightly anxious, because that normalizes how they're feeling. Right? Because oftentimes they're basically wondering as to whether what they're feeling is acceptable. Can you voice it? How will I feel about the fact that one of them didn't want to travel back this week? Well, you know what? I am as anxious of making such decisions, and it's okay. That doesn't mean you're not going to make a decision, but that means you
Understanding the others.
understand
Yeah,
others,
yeah.
and you can feel them and allow them to feel you. Because I think this is the bond that I personally believe is extremely important with teams.
It's the
is
human
that,
touch between
that
the people.
they know that there is that human connection far beyond what we do on day-to-day basis.
True, true.
I mean, I really want to stress this message, especially for our audience, because some people just take it for granted. That responsibility of having to, steer the ship while situations are uncertain, and taking the responsibility, even though you have your anxieties, you put that aside and you're putting
How
people,
you show up to the people.
and that is something that people take for granted, and they don't understand that. Look, I'm taking decisions. I'm making decisions also when information is not complete. Right? Information is not
Yeah.
complete, and I think the background that you come from helps a lot. Right? I mean, anybody who comes from our region, I come from Jordan. My mom's Lebanese. We live in, I think, more turbulent situations than others, and I don't want to attribute it just to the background, because it's a personality that is built. And the difference between a great leader and a good leader is the ability to stand up even when
Things are not clear.
even when we're anxious ourselves.
Yeah.
You put it aside. I mean, congratulations.
But Saif, this is interesting because we go back to what we were discussing earlier on about consistency. For me, everything really roots back to consistency in leadership. It is the ability at any point in time to be consistent in your behavior, in at least how you come to the outside world, despite the times where you're in a total high or in a total low. It is about that consistency at all times.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, and I'd also highly recommend to our audiences to check out Hala Matar Choufany's interviews. I mean, I've seen quite a few of them. Very, very impressive. I mean, really impressive.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hala, as we come to the end of the conversation, which I don't want to, but we have to for the time constraint. Today, what Hala wants people to remember her? Tell me, describe one word, 2 words. What do you want people to remember Hala Choufany?
And I want to add one more thing here. And what would you tell your younger self after this incredible journey that you
Younger
have
self?
and
I
continue
know,
to
I
have?
can tell you later. You always tell me. But we want to hear it from
Which
you,
one do
Hala.
I take first?
Take the younger self and then
The
tell us
younger
about
self,
the
yeah,
people.
I think
Okay.
I will just
Yeah.
wrap up. What I would tell my younger self.
Cool down, number 1, Hala.
Breathe.
Breathe. Cool
The
down.
first one, I
breathe.
would say breathe.
Right.
Breathe, right? I think just looking back at my journey and many others that are starting with their careers at the moment, I would tell my younger self, it's great to be ambitious and to want to be out there and to do many things. But real leadership takes time, consistency, and impact takes time. And therefore, I would probably say, don't be in a hurry, right? Breathe, take it a step at a time. It didn't have to happen so fast. It was extremely fast. I mean, you earlier on said, how soon did you go into a leadership role? Very soon. I never thought in my early 20s I would already be responsible for a whole Middle East and thereon in the early 30s responsible for Africa. I'm grateful. I look back with a lot of pride on this journey. But again, because I'm talking to my younger self, I'd say breathe. And it's important to understand that leadership is a journey, and you have to remain very consistent. And I think this ties into your question, how would I want to leave people thinking about me? I think impact is extremely important for me, personal and professional. I want to be remembered for someone that has done good, provided good advice, mentored. I mean, I'm inclined to say an educator. I mean, not necessarily in full-time capacity, but that's why I tend to spend quite a bit of time in trainings as well as lecturing at universities, because I think the best thing that we can do to each other is share the knowledge and to push each other to be the best of what we want to be. Again, because there is a misconception around pushing others. I mean, not everyone wants to go to the same speed. Not everyone really wants to sit in our place.
Don't assume that.
Don't assume
everyone-
that,
yeah.
right? But if somebody wants to,
Help
how
them.
can I really help them to thrive to reach that? And this for me is extremely important. So, you know, when we asked many of our alumni to talk about their journey in one word, the words they have used were pretty much very consistent. And it all speaks to the fact that this was transformational. They learned a lot, they were empowered, and they were trusted. And I think those four really is quite telling in which how ideally I'd like to be remembered.
I'm sure, Hala, your journey, as you said, and I know you very well, you know, on how you think and how you are handling. Hala always advised me, Hala, cool down. We are both Hala, right? Cool
Yeah.
down. Take it easy. So,
Yeah.
Hala, you have a lot of stories, a lot of lesson, and if we want to summarize, all the, examples, stories you have told us today, it's all about the values. It's all about the principle that we came, from our background, and how you converted, to be in the
Yeah.
business, the culture that you are created. So, Hala, thank you for so much for today. We really enjoyed our session. And say if you have a question.
I always
Hala?
have a question.
Yeah? To end it
I
up?
always have a question. So we have a tradition, right? For every
Okay.
guest, we ask them, who would you like to see next?
On this couch.
And what's a question that you have for them? I mean, I know we're putting you on the spot, so if you don't have somebody in mind, you can always come back to us with it. But we'd like to know.
I'll come back to you with a recommendation for sure, although my immediate response would have been perhaps
Yeah.
bringing in my mom.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why, my mom or your mom, or because it's also very interesting to see how they have pushed through during their times, and how we have ended up where we ended up here, and then how we're passing it on to the other generation, or potentially which you have done. And it was an amazing idea when you brought in the Gen Z, because at times you just want to bring in different perspectives. But I'll definitely come back to you with a recommendation of who to occupy the seat next.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Hala,
Thank you
your
for having
time.
me.
Thank you, Hala.
I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed our conversation. Thank you both.